Cuts to the police budget, but not staffing. That is the result of a late-night city council vote in Minneapolis. Some council members have called for changes to policing in the city following the death of George Floyd. Council members voting to move nearly $8 million from the Minneapolis Police Department and into violence prevention programs. And they also voted to keep staffing levels the same. And it comes as the city is seeing violent crime rates rising and dozens of officers leaving the force. Earlier today, I spoke with attorney Ronald Meuser Jr. He's the founder of Muse, Yackley, and Roland, PA, and works with people who have been injured in the state of Minnesota. He represents nearly 200 Minneapolis police officers, some who say they are leaving the force due to PTSD from a summer of unrest. Ron, thank you so much for joining us tonight on NewsNation. I want to start with how many police officers you are representing who have left the force or are in the process of filing disability that would allow them essentially to leave their jobs permanently.
We currently represent approximately 180 officers who have either left or will be leaving within the next month or two.
What reason are they giving you for wanting to leave?
The vast majority of those officers that are leaving are officers who are suffering from both physical and mental injuries, with a significant portion of those being individuals suffering from what I would describe as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder.
What are their legal claims? What do they want?
They're entitled to any number of benefits, including medical or psychological care treatment, which are constantly denied by the city, wage loss benefits for the time period that they're off work, as well as what's called permanency if the condition is ultimately deemed to be a permanent condition.
What have they shared with you?
Many officers that are currently within the department have symptoms that are consistent with PTSD. But then what's happened is following the George Floyd incident, this tended to be what I would describe as a watershed event, that with the riots and the treatment of the police officers by the rioters, the agitators, by the general public, it put them to the point where they just physically and mentally could not continue forward.
We have seen reports that violent crime in the Minneapolis area has gone up since the death of George Floyd in May. So what challenges do the officers say that they're facing on the streets in trying to do their job?
There's just simply not enough police officers to man the shifts.
And so are you concerned, based on what officers are telling you that are leaving, officers who are still in the department, that the city of Minneapolis may have trouble recruiting new officers to this job?
At their peak, you might have as many as 200 or 300 candidates for a specific opening. Those numbers are now down, and I don't have the exact figure, but I believe they're down substantially to far less than 100 or potential candidates for each position. But for example, their recruiting class, they canceled one already, so they are not replacing these officers as fast as they are leaving.
Do your officers tell you that they understand some of the challenges that the community has put forth, some of the calls for change in policing?
There's a number of people that within the department, my officers included, that feel that certain types of actions, reforms are appropriate. But the level of attacks that has gone towards these police officers is unprecedented. And it's a completely unfair statement to hold all officers accountable for the actions of a few.
So what is the best way forward to repair what is a fractured relationship right now for many between the community and the police who serve that community?
First is that we have to be honest to say that we need our police officers. We need sufficient officers to patrol the streets, to protect the safety and the well-being of all of our citizens. I think that we have to have some communication with all forms of the community, individuals and groups, to help speak to their concerns, because they're legitimate concerns that have to be addressed. But we can't just vilify the police officers and accuse them of being murderers or racist or things of that sort, because that does nobody any good. It has to be an actual discussion. But most importantly, I honestly believe you have to have police officers. There has to be law and order. The people of the city of Minneapolis must be protected. The businesses must be protected in order for us to move forward.
What is the next step for the officers you represent?
So we're now in a fight with the city. You know, the city oftentimes will tell the media or anyone that wants to listen that they care about their police officers and they're providing services for them. The simple fact is that the vast majority of these claims are simply denied, and these officers are left out in the cold.
Do the officers feel as though they have not been supported by the department or the city council or the community, or is it a little bit of all of the above?
These officers feel completely abandoned, from the mayor of the city of Minneapolis, Mayor Fry, to the chief of police, Chief Arredondo, to the city council. And lastly, I'm going to point out, they've been completely abandoned by the community. If these officers were to get the help, the psychological care or treatment that enabled them to go back, I believe that the vast majority would go back if it was their choice. They did not come to me by choice. They ultimately had no choice.
Ron Meuser, Jr., we appreciate your time. Thank you.